And I would also like to thank Mike Atkin, because without Mike, I would never have met Alan and John. So you introduced us February 2009. What am I going to talk about? Well, I'm going to work on my trauma. I suffered the first trauma and then the second one. The first one was, oops, slides, please. So the first trauma was when I came to statistics at the ECB. I came at the mature age of 46 years, up to 16 years in automotive, and it was too late to format me as a normal statistician. So I found a community of beaten dogs who were facing a challenge they preferred to ignore because they couldn't find a solution at the bottom of their silo. And as they say in Britain, you won't find a solution to your problems at the bottom of a glass. It's the same for regulators. We won't find a solution at the bottom of our silo. And that's the same for businesses too. So let me start with a holiday picture, just to soothe my pain. This is San Cipriano in Colombia, a bridge built by a poor community. And they spend a lot of money on that. But there is something. That bridge has been in that state for 5 years. Something's missing. It's a bit like technology. We invest a hell of a lot in technology, and then we forget the last 5% in terms of expense that would make it safe to cross. And even if you had that, on the other side, there's a jungle, as in this picture too, and you don't know what's expecting you. And that's where we are today. So let's talk about technology for a start, and us humans, our society. Technology and science is by its nature an exponential process. Every new advance multiplies everything that's been here before. AI at the moment, quantum computing comes next. The way we develop our capacity to control the system, well, it's at best linear, but now that everything is integrated globally, it gets worse, because where 20 years ago it was, 40 years ago, it was good to sit together in a national standards committee. You created your DIN norm in Germany, and the job was done, and 3 companies agree, the rest follows. Now you need to agree on the global level. 2006, when I hit statistics, I realized that problem, and the idea of the LEI came at once. So I developed this concept for 2 years. First fright was, oh no, it needs to be global to work, if at all. And I was lucky to hit on a leader that deserves the term leader, Jean-Claude Trichet. He came out of this blindfolded boxing match he had to fight in the night after Lehman collapsed. And it took him a minute to understand the idea, because he's an engineer at root. His training was in engineering. He gave me his blessing, go and see what you can get done. Otherwise, my colleagues would have slaughtered me, like they would in any institution. I mean, I was lucky at the ECB, you can't be fired for that kind of thing. In America, you can. So here's one of your leaders, who also deserves the term, Gary Gensler. Gary Gensler, in this article of the FT, alerts about the danger of AI and of the model risk. And the very important thing he says, it's frankly a hard challenge. It's a hard financial stability issue to address, because most of our regulation is about individual institutions looking at the bottom of our silos, individual banks, individual money market funds, etc. It's just the nature of what we do. And this is about the horizontal problem. And even if we dig deeper into our silos, we won't solve it. That's Gary Gensler. So the main failing we had in 2008, it was a loss of control. Say it's bad enough. Now, how does control work? Well, I'm a simple engineer and mathematician physicist, so I look at those things from a technical standpoint, conceptual standpoint, not so much from a political standpoint. I know politics is all around. It was said this morning by Alex Pollock, rightly. You have a real world system, you measure, you analyze, you act, and then you're in control. If someone throws a basketball towards you, your eyes see the basketball. Well, the photons hit the eye, the brain builds the picture, and analyzes the trajectory. Oh no, it's going to hit my nose. Analysis continues. What action? Duck or catch? And if I'm fast and strong enough and in time, I catch the ball, problem solved. If it's a bullet that comes your way, the photons from the bullet hit your eye. The brain is too slow to build a picture, and the rest is history if the bullet hits you. We need to have control in a number of areas. Financial stability, for a start. So we want stability to happen not by chance. We want to happen by control. We need to be in control of stability. Crime. Well, there is much to say about that, but there's a lot going on, and not much in terms of solving things. ESG. Well, the whole climate change thing. If we want to know how green our Mercedes is, we will not know unless we have mapped the entire supply chain down to the shop in India, which I have seen in the 90s when I acquired a company there, where 12-year-old girls make small injection molded plastic parts. They're so cheap, nimble fingers, very obedient. That's why I can offer you that great quality at such a low price. That's what the entrepreneur said. He was very happy about this presentation. So we want control. Well, if we want to be in control of a system, we need to measure, analyze, and act at the speed scale of that system. And we need to be able to adapt to the shape of events that come. That's one challenge. And now comes another one. We have a systemic structural mismatch between a global system, economic system, that's integrated by technology and tightly coupled. So there's an old German saying, well, who cares if a sack of rice falls over in China? Today we should care, because that can trigger something anywhere else. And what it triggers anywhere else can trigger something anywhere else again. Tightly coupled means also it can happen in no time. On the other side, we have a regulatory landscape that is mapping political geography. I mean, the Federal Reserve is for the US. The Banque de France covers France. ECB is a strange animal. It covers the euro area. It's also fragmented along sectoral borders. We here talk about finance, financial regulators. Of them, we see in the world perhaps 500 to 1,000, each one carefully looking at his silo. In a conversation with Christine Lagarde last summer, I asked her, isn't it strange that we have two financial regulators in Frankfurt for the euro area and the EU, one looking at banks, the other one looking at insurance companies and pension funds, but no one looks at shadow banking. So doesn't that tell us that the proxy banking is equal to lending? So you want to regulate lending, regulate banking. That proxy is over. It's not valid anymore. Does it make sense to regulate a silo here, a silo there? I don't remember that 2008 respected any silo border or any national border. Both these sides are here to stay. So we need to look at the interface, and we need to revisit the design of that interface, because that interface is an utter mess at the moment. Now, specifications of effective control. Scale, speed, shape. What are the scenarios we could face? We could face a global event. Is that possible with technology we have today? Well, it was possible 16 years ago, and we haven't stopped since. It could go instantly global, and it could be at once complex and fast. It will not stay in finance. It will hit all other industries, and it might also come from outside finance and hit finance. Now, control must work at the speed of events, and as anyone knows in sport, you will never be fast enough to run the 20 meters to catch the ball that will be there at 20 in a half a second. So when you see the other guy kick the ball, you're a clever player, you start running where you know the ball will go, and you're there in time, and you kick your goal. So anticipation is important, and another strategy that's important is avoidance. If we can't fight the fight, let's avoid the fight. So measurement is the first step of control. So I'm a statistician, and I was frustrated from the beginning when I saw the miserable state of statistical products. And I'm not speaking for Europe. I'm speaking for the world. Because effective measurement in the world of technology is global, real-time, nimble to adapt to any shape, any event that happens. Today, you can have any statistic provided you need it at the time you have it finished. It is, well, your need is covered by what we offer. At the ECB, we have started 20 plus years ago to go a bit further. So I could say we have the bigger one. My first job in statistics was alongside balance of payments, which is the dirtiest statistic by nature that you can imagine. I was charged to build up the centralized securities database. That's the largest securities database in the world. It holds data on over 50 million securities, past and present, because statistics also looks back. And that's where I got my shock, because the ECB can't go back to a public register of securities allowed for trading. We had to buy the data on the market. And everyone sells you a different representation of that same Bundesanleihe or T-bill. So the data industry actually destroys information. Because once I have all the product the data industry can offer me, I need to go back to the prospectus to see what's actually truth. And we accept that. It's a given. It's a fatal one. So effective measurement, global real-time, nimble. And say at the ECB, we have slow data in stock. We have the CSDB with all the securities. We have AnaCredit. We're going to come back to that. That holds dozens of millions of loans. All intercorporate loans above 20,000 euro in the EU are registered there. That's slow data we have in stock. Now, one of the famous problems statisticians face all the time is ad hoc requests, things we don't have. And if you want to measure real time, you need to have pretty quick access to that data. So at least it takes a fully automated supply chain from operational systems to the regulator's database. That works only if data is standardized across all operational systems, and that must be worldwide. Now that's where people say, oh no, leave me alone. We can't even standardize locally. I say, well, reality out there will be implacable, implacable. So if we don't want to face a challenge, we give up already. Put your head in the sand, you don't know what happens next. Sadly, the reporting supply chain can't go real time. It will never go real time. So reporting won't deliver control. We need to look for something else. And I invite you to think big here, not at the bottom of your silo. A new paradigm for measurement could be that the same data serves operations and measurement. Now, as an engineer, I say, well, that's what you do in any machine you build that has some kind of automation inside. The data that serves operations, the data that serves measurement, that's the same data. In finance, we don't do that. But we use technology. We don't care about consistency, and that's dangerous. So to come to a design, now I'm talking design, not feasibility, I warn you, that will come later. So how can we approach this? We must accept and explicitly face the challenge. Technology is going sooner or later to have a hiccup that will destroy us. A colleague once, when I joined statistics, said, nah, data's always been bad, it will always be bad. I also know we fixed it, or the day will come we won't need it anymore. Back to Einstein's Fourth World War. It will be fought with sticks and stones. I don't hope for that because I have children. You probably too, some of you. So we need to think big. We need to think design without too much constraint. Keep the filters realistic, pragmatic, feasible, politically acceptable. Keep that for later. First, think about architecture. Otherwise, we might find that, last year we had the money to build a kitchen. This year we have the money to build a dining hall, so we build it here. Next year we realize, oh, the bathroom, we need to build it now between the kitchen and the dining hall. There's no other space left. Why? Because we didn't do architecture. So think architecture first, think design. And then once we have a concept for systemic design, think back. What migration paths can take us from here to there? And what specific actions we can later build upon to go higher can we undertake now? One of them is LEI, the other one is ACTUS, no discussion. Now, back to nature. That's Pando. US is a beautiful country. You have Utah, lots of nature. Pando is a largest living thing on Earth. It's 50,000 trees on 42 hectares, and it's a single organism. All the trees you see are genetically exactly the same. They all emanate from a root network, and that's actual organism. A tree lives 100 years, falls, rots. Another tree uses the same substance to build up from the same genetic base. And the system is thousands of years old. Like, unfortunately, it's dying due to drought, climate change. So, and we need to give a fresh look at the system. What is the substance we're measuring? Say we had alchemists who looked at earth, fire, water, and air. And they tried to transmutate lead into gold, looking at those four elements. Lucky we had a couple of physicists who looked a bit deeper and, hey, now Mendeleev, we know what species of atoms there are. They're highly standardized across the world. Iron is the same atom across the world. You can count on this. So that gave us chemistry. Now, what vision in terms of how do we see it? We see with our brain, we construct pictures in our brain. What vision of the system, the economic system, can help us? Well, first, the clicker doesn't work. Yeah. 4 layers. The human layer, that's where we are. That's us. We work, we live, we play the economic game. That's where prices are made. That's where politics are made. That's messy. It has always been, will always be. The contract layer. Well, today, or for a long time, when you make promises, the economy is made of promises. And 2,000 years ago, you made a promise to deliver. If you didn't deliver, someone would come and clobber you. Nowadays, you have a contract where the promises are recorded. If you don't deliver, you will be taken to court and you will be clobbered as well, but more politely. And that's already where we have a first hint at the solution. The contracts form a network. That's a graph. We can start to do mathematics and computing and so on. Standardization, it's a guide. Next layer is the technology layer. 2,000 years ago, the contracts were recorded in the minds of the parties. There were promises among people. Gradually, they started to be written down. Technology changed to paper, pen and paper, and lawyers, and attorneys, and the administrative personnel. They were all part of the technology that ran the contracts and recorded them. That's where we mess up, because now we produce paper version of the contract. Say for a security, it's a prospectus. And then we produce many digital representations of the same prospectus to make it simple in our machine. My machine loses that data, your machine uses that data, never mind that they need to communicate. That's where technology and the way we use it defeats us. And that's where it's not. Why? Because it's now technically integrated on a global scale and tightly coupled. And the latest actor in the game is the environmental layer, the natural environment. We take things out of it, we put things back into it, and that also starts reacting to what we do. A bit more slowly, but without stopping. Coming back to Pando. Well, Pando is 50,000 trees. We see millions of businesses around the globe, but actually, it's a single organism. If you look at the network of contracts, each bank, each business is actually a subnetwork. So if you're a legal entity, we are legal entities. We're human animals with a cloak of legal entity that comes from our identity that's given to us by the sovereign. I have a contractual footprint. That's, I don't know, perhaps a couple of hundred contracts maximum, probably less. Everyone has that. A legal entity has it. But if you take that view, what's an exposure? The exposure is the answer to the question, if an event happens over there, will it trigger chains of contracts that will hit me at the end of the day? With that tool, you can start putting some, say, technical, conceptual substance to that vague concept of exposures. And businesses fail. The contract network lives on. That's the real substance. So the clicker, is it? Now that's a normal forest. That's usually what we see. We look at trees. That's all we see. But the real substance we need to master if we want to establish control over that system is the root system. That's where we need to look. And again, there is not my root system, your root system. We share the same. Okay. To develop a solution for this, we need to think big picture, and we need to take a long horizon. It takes 20 years to build infrastructure. Say I kicked off this idea, LEI, 2006. It went pretty fast, surprisingly fast, thanks to some here present, also John Bottega, to the charter, a G20 charter, and then happened this usual disaster. The great and good publish a headline, our job is done. And then they abandon the people who are charged with implementing it, and they don't give a damn. How many calls for transparency have you heard? How many discussions of a technical, conceptual definition of transparency have you heard? How much work has been done thinking about how we need to re-engineer parts of the system to reach transparency? I haven't heard much. So 20 years to build infrastructure, 20 years of useful life. We don't want to be obsolete on day one. Well, we need to conceive it today for the year 2060 plus. That's where the clicker doesn't really work. Where do I point it? Okay, so the design concept of today needs to be thought for the context 2060. That's also where many people say, not with me. Forget it, science fiction. By the way, Isaac Asimov said science fiction is work of writers who think about the impact of technology on mankind or civilization. That's what we need to do, but we don't do it as regulators. We ignore that. Yeah, we have, it's not in my mandate, sorry. A colleague from a National Central Bank 6 years ago, when we discussed that, he said, thank God we didn't have the data. They would have held us responsible. That's one way to shirk the responsibilities. No, but practically, how can we approach that? There are invariants, and then there are things that change. What changes is technology. And there, we don't need to go into detail. Technology 2060 is technology 2024 times 10 to the power of n. When people tell you, but that's hard to compute, forget about it. We will have computing capacity. We have storage capacity galore in 20, 30 years. So we need to design for that future. Invariants are more interesting to look at. And then we see, okay, we have it all. We must make a couple of assumptions. Let's assume 2060 plus, we will have humans. I hope we will be here. Not me personally, but the younger ones here. And that those humans will be organized in states with law, not only bloodthirsty warlords and so on. And we hope there will be an economy. If that happens, we will have parties and contracts. So the network of contracts is an invariant. It's a network of contracts that connects a global population of parties. The smallest relevant system for the institutional mission of the ECB, of the Fed, of the SEC is the world. If we don't monitor and measure the world, we will be hit by something that comes from outside our silo, and it topples the silo. Oh, shit, we're on the side now. And the beauty of this is that each contract, each party is a legal fact enshrined in the law of a sovereign somewhere. So this is something solid we can build on. Oh, just as a little aside, an asset. My house. Is my house my asset? No. My house is a well-organized pile of bricks with technical equipment and decoration that does its work. My asset is the title deed. I got that from Hernando de Soto. Because there are plenty of people in poor South American countries that have a house, but they have no title deed. So they can't go to a bank and borrow money to modernize their agriculture, and they can be chased by a gang of thugs from their land, and they have nothing to go back to. So it's a contract. It's a contract between you and the sovereign that guarantees that You have rights and obligations pertaining to that object. That will be important when you come back then later. Now, here are a couple of trends that are ongoing. And the architecture I have in mind can be built by riding all of those trends. The network of contracts, if we want to have it highly standardized, and if we want to do good digitalization, well, we will need one object, one representation digital, only one. And everyone who touches that object, whose processes and machines touch that object, will have to touch that one representation. And that is in the blockchain. It's a global blockchain. All contracts are in there. You have access to your contractual footprint. I have access to mine. The statistician can interrogate the entire system without knowing the detail. The supervisor can look in the underpants of all the supervised. A bank that's made up of 5,000, 6,000 legal entities across the world, it will be there. You will know it. You define the relationships that make control, and then you know what's a group under control. A legal entity that's created for one transaction. So Chris Taggart talked here about fireflies. One transaction, and you make it extinct. It's in the network. And you know it has existed from 5 to 10 to 5 past 10 on that day. And a transaction has happened. You will tell me that's surveillance? I say yes, in a way. We need to organize it. And again, data protection and breach protection, the technology we will need for that will be there by the time we have agreed to do that. Tokens play an important role. I will come back to that a bit later. Smart contracts, of course. And AI, well, just imagine the day we have ACTUS everywhere, you go to a negotiation table with a potential business party, you start discussing, I have my contract AI, you have your contract AI, and our contract AIs talk and write the contract as we discuss in the ACTUS language. That will be generalized to all types of contracts. Then you can come in and say, okay, now I have my lawyer AI. Lawyer AI, the contract as it stands now, is it okay? Is it complete? No, you missed 2 whereases. And are there configurations of our business where I would be screwed? Yes, yes. If this and that happens, Article 12, you're down. Oh, could we renegotiate Article 12? And the partner says, yes, if we can reopen Article 11 as well. Okay, we renegotiate. And at the end, the contract is written. It goes into the cloud. Yeah. Now, ECB's AnaCredit is also a network, a sub-network of contracts or loans, but they are reported in a template. That's still a sad story. We create one more representation, but okay, at least that's standardized because we have it under control. 6 years ago, I managed to get one of our bosses to say at the commission in a presentation that AnaCredit 2.0 should be different. It should be the network of contracts. So all loans in Europe will need to be written as an ACTUS contract. And that is the contract. You can add some legalese, but that is the contract. And that's lodged in the network cloud. And then, well, statisticians and analysts can do their work. It's a long way to go, but we have a start. And we are at the moment beginning a first exploratory project where we will have a bunch of these loans put into ACTUS, and then the people in supervision will play with it. And the person who carries that project at the ECB is Moritz Karber, and he is going to intervene now for 5 minutes to tell you a bit more about that project. Hello, Moritz. Moritz, you are on mute. He just doesn't know we are on. He should be, yeah. Moritz?
I've seen worse.
Yeah. Hello? Hello, Moritz? Moritz? Let me give him a phone call.
No?
Okay. Yes. Very good. Okay, great. Sorry for that. It says that I'm unmuted all the time, but great. Okay. So many thanks, Francis. I'm very honored to speak here, and I'm sorry for this technical glitch. And I'm a bit jealous on you, who can be now physically in DC for that very nice conference. I would have liked to be there as well, but unfortunately it was not possible. So very briefly, my name is Moritz Karber. I'm an economist, and I work in the so-called SAPTIC division of the European Central Bank. And there, our task is to make the euro area's main banking regulator, like one of these two regulators that Francis had spoken about before, the Single Supervisory Mechanism, or SSM, basically to make that supervisor the leading digital supervisor of the world. This is what we put as our motto, so to say. And in fact, also steadfast for the next financial crisis, which I think is even more important than being the leading digital supervisor. And as part of this endeavor, we are very closely looking into the field of regulatory reporting, as well as its use in conjunction with other emerging technologies, for example, generative AI, big data, DLT, and also quantum computing. That's a bit the areas where my team mainly focus on that. As you probably know by now, ACTUS has many advantages, and one of it is that it, on several levels up on the reporting chain, it can be used, and it provides actually value added on each of those levels. So the first one is that on contract or expert level, you can manage the single contract, and you can keep an overview over your various contracts, which is already positive, but probably not too much different from other standards, if you like. However, on firm or bank level, the risk management function already can keep an overview across the different contracts and can notably do stress testing and sensitivity analysis directly out of the box with it. And it can exchange and verify contracts with other counterparties, with Francis very nicely pointed out, with the different AIs chatting together in order to get the best contract out of it. Now, we are curious if you can bring that to the next level so that the regulator can keep this overview, conduct the stress testing and the sensitivity analysis, and can also exchange information with supervised entities in a much more efficient and real-time or close to real-time manner. Finally, also, you can think that on a supranational level, where the ECB is already at, but as we know, there are other authorities above, such as the EBA or the BIS. If they are also on the supranational level, one can keep an overview and conduct the corresponding stress testing and sensitivity analysis, and then also implement corresponding policies and design those policies, which is actually then the next point. So far, the largest share of the testing and of the application of ACTUS has focused on the levels 1 and 2, meaning on firm and bank level, and the corresponding contract management there, the internal risk management, and all the magnificent properties that we've seen there, stress testing and contract verification. But as said, now we would like to take that to the next level. For this, we actually designed ACRA, which is the unaccredited cash flow analyzer. Francis already explained that unaccredited is basically all the loans that corporates hand out in the euro area to other non-private entities, and they are as of 25,000 euros. And so you have there a very granular database actually. And we will test ACTUS on this granular database from a regulator's perspective, with this specific focus on stress testing and sensitivity analysis. And for that, we'd like to do that on a quite broad level, actually, on a macro level, and also across various jurisdictions, which is one of the charms of the SSM, that we are one regulator, but we have something like 21 jurisdictions. We have chosen for that the euro area corporate mortgage portfolios. It's one of the largest risk pools, as shown by risk-weighted assets and also shown by recent scandals. You might have heard of some Austrian companies failing here and there, and of course also in the US. There, we all know that the offices are a bit less full than usually, so there are some real estate risks out there. And on top, it's a quite well-studied area with the key underlying product actually being rather simple. I mean, in the end, it's a mortgage, and that makes corporate loans quite a standard testing ground for such new reporting concepts. We've also seen something similar by the FDIC. They also use corporate mortgages, and we're quite curious how our test compares to their test. So on top of that, in Europe, corporate mortgages also enjoy a very granular reporting, as we have not only the unaccredited reporting, which is specifically basically to the credit files, But also, of course, we have all the standard reporting that comes on top. So we have this core rep, FinRep, EBA reporting, and all the standard financial reporting that any financial firm and banks do actually have. Together with that, that allows us quite a granular interwoven picture of the commercial lending by banks. Of course, not in real time, only backward looking and very siloed, and a very static picture. So the idea here is that this pilot will look more into that, and it is part of the wider data-driven financial risk and regulatory reporting project, where also Henriette will speak about later, the DAT FIR3 project, funded by the Swiss National Fund, and we run it jointly together with the University and Applied University of Zurich, and of course the ECB. And the aim is that over the next 6 months, a handful of researchers and experts will map the existing corporate mortgage data from AnaCredit onto the ACTUS scheme and apply on top of that standard EBA stress tests. So that's quite nice because we have there like really standardized scenarios that have been the same for a number of years, like 8 years or so. The scenario is always the same, or the shocks especially are the same. And then we want to compare those results with those from the EBA stress test. So far, we don't know yet what we'll get out, but what we will know is that we will get out some high-level results, and that will be shown together with some small demo application on the datfir3.ch website. And if it's interesting, we will also provide some updates in the regular ACTUS meeting. So we hope that you stay tuned, and I thank you very much for your interest, and hand back to Francis.
Thank you very much, Moritz. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go a bit faster now. If the clicker works. Here we go. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about a generalization of ACTUS. So as at heart, a mathematician, I generalize things. ACTUS, as Alan already said, says that each contract is an algorithm. And I expand this to say it's an algorithm that says who does what, for whom, when, under what circumstances. Now, the who is an LEI, does what is a token. Token can represent an asset, so a contract. It can represent a physical object. It can represent an action. And that will be validated, yes or no, by parties. If the parties don't agree, we go to court. The judge says whether it's a yes or no. So the human agent remains in the contract. When? Well, that's time. And can be a function, of course. Under what circumstances? Again, token. Fire insurance, my house burned. Did it burn the right way? A token will be validated by the expert. Yes, it burned the right way. You go. So AI can write the contracts that I said already. Humans stay in the loop of that contract life. People and the sovereigns stay in control of their constituencies while being able to measure their entire global system and the entire economic system with all the integration. So the digital infrastructure at the interface, I've talked about it. It needs to be a public good. It needs to be global. So I thought, well, perhaps naively, a technical UN agency or something of that kind needs to be created. It can't be left to firms. Private companies will manage the infrastructure, etc. But the responsibility needs to be public and global. So on data infrastructures, we need to cooperate in a field where we today compete. I like to take the examples of roads. When cars were invented, roads became a cooperative thing. You don't drive through your neighbor's garden. We build roads together. We use them. We don't drive through the neighbor's garden. So, Trichet, when he had a discussion with the heads of the European institutions, 2010, he's a poet as well. He said of the LEI, but we can apply it more widely, every one of us needs it. There can only be one of it. No one can do it for themselves, so we must do it together. That's the biggest hurdle we face because everyone looks down their silo selfishly, public and private. Overton window, I spare you that one, but simply certain things are unthinkable today. We will need to think them. So we better change our mind. Now comes a proposal for a new deal for sustainable digitalization. It's a very simple one. Effective stability control demands plenty of data of high quality, real time, etc. We discussed that. So what if science took a serious look, an honest look at it and say, well, no, you're not set up well. When I was asked by my new director general at the time I joined statistics, what do you think about great statisticism? I said, well, if I was sent from Mars to build a system to measure the European economy, it's not what I see. I made myself popular on day one. So industry plays a role in this. Industry has an eminent interest in the regulators being and the supervisors being successful. Because if we fail, you go down and you suffer. Now, a few who short the market might have an interest, but the vast majority will suffer from it. And it might also be the day we won't need data anymore because the system is in such disorder that there will be chaos. So the New Deal is a very simple one. Make an offer they can't refuse. Dear authorities, we want you to be successful, says industry. And we know that you need all that data for it. But being professionals, we also know you will fail because the way you do it can't work. So here's the deal. You give us the infrastructures you can build easily and we can't build. Just change your mind a little bit. And then we will be able to give you plenty of data that works. We will be safer. You can shine. We're all good. And that's the deal we need to propose. Now, there's an economic aspect to it. There will be thousands of billions of investment in technology over the next 20, 30 years. That investment will be hugely messy and inefficient. If we could have standards and infrastructures, and infrastructures are more important than standards, because the standard can be interpreted. An infrastructure, that object is there and only there. If we have infrastructures in place, how much more efficient will investment be? And to answer the question that was asked before, then it's an economic game for industry. Do I continue to run my antiquated legacy systems because I'm so afraid to kill them or touch them? Or do I invest into something new that will cost now, but that will reap huge benefits down the road? Innovation, safety, lower operating cost, you name it. Yeah. So an example of how easy it could be, LEI. So that's still my baby, although I'm a bit detached from it now because I think it's failing. Yeah. We would need a new business model. So the LEI will only be successful the day, like a number plate on the car, every legal entity has it, no discussion, but also the day that infrastructure is accurate real time. Your systems can go fetch your data there. You don't need to go and check and validate again. That's the truth from the horse's mouth. Easy to do, cheap to do, but we don't do it because we are stupid, to say plainly, ignorant and indifferent. The business model needs to be zero fee. So that kills the barrier of proportionality. Oh, no, we can't ask bakeries to have one because it's too expensive for them. I agree. Make it free of charge and universal coverage and real-time accuracy. That is so easy to do. Identity is a product of the sovereign. I take France as an example where we have it easy because France likes to centralize. In France, you have the Code Sirène. That's a national database that identifies every business register in France. Now you build a standing line between the Sirène database and the LEI database. Plenty of documents to leave them there with Sirène, but the 5 attributes of the LEI, all of them are shipped to the LEI database, and an LEI is added to all of them. Costs nothing. You change the name of your company, you go to INSEE, you register the new name of your company. The moment the guy at INSEE pushes the button, it's updated in Sirène, it's updated in the LEI. You have it accurate, real time, you have universal coverage, zero cost, zero fee. Why don't we do it? I don't know. I don't know, especially when I see the consequences. Yeah. So what we need for that, to have discipline among millions of people, we need law to be done, not a requirement for specific reporting. We need the sovereign to say, okay, I create identity, you will have a certificate when you register your business, and on top of that, you will have an LEI, and the data will be lodged in that global database, because you will have an interest in it. First step, practical, the Global LEI Foundation could be made in a public institution. Today, or some cite it as an obstacle, it's a Swiss private law foundation. Oh, we can't mandate that. Well, make it a public institution. Give the people new contracts, and then you go. Yeah. If one country starts, I hope there will be an avalanche. I hope that the US might be the first. Thank you.